I'm going to look at a tennis match now and use Tennis Trader to have a poke around, see what sort of opportunities could be available when this match goes in play a bit later. It's Bartoli v Azarenka, and what we'll do is go in and have a look and see what we can find. So what I'm going to do here is use the well, actually what we need to do first is calibrate and select the type of match. So we've done that, and we also need to have a look at what we want to examine. So I'm going to choose the custom score, which I'll explain in a second. Bartoli wins set, Azarenka wins set. And the interesting thing about women's tennis is because they are generally 3-set matches, very different from men's tennis in a Grand Slam tournament. So when Wimbledon's on next week, this is an important point to have a look at. You can see here, if we're playing over 3 sets, which we are, then if Bartoli wins the set, then her odds will collapse from 311 down to 163. Azarenka would go from 148 to 117. And obviously, because if you're a set up, you only need to win one more set to win the match. So that's pretty obvious. Let's say though, obviously this isn't going to be the case with the women, but let's say that it was a 5-set match. You can see how radically different the odds are. Bartoli would come down to 207 instead of 163. So you can see how significant the number of sets is. This is why people say, oh, women's tennis is more volatile than men's. Well, yes and no. No, it isn't more volatile, because the same characteristics and statistics apply. But yes, it is, because you've got less sets. There you go. Simple answer. So, yeah, let's have a look at this match. Putting up win set on either side just gives us a feel for what could happen. So you can see there will be significant odds whoever wins the set. But if we wind it forward to different types of games, we can get a feel for what could happen. So if it's 5-all and Bartoli is serving, you can see that there's very little difference between where they started. The odds have changed a little bit. And if we flick it around the other way, you can see here that knowing who serves first isn't going to make a great deal of difference if the match progresses in equilibrium. But if we start allocating points and so on, then you can see that there's a significant change. If, for example, Azarenka is serving at 5-all and Bartoli goes 30 love up, you can see how radically that changes things. So at 30 love up, we go from 291 to 233. Or if you're laying Azarenka, we're going... Oops, done this wrong way around. If you're laying Azarenka, it goes from 152 to 175. There's 20 tick gap there. So, as the match progresses, there are certain points within the match that are, really, really critical. So what's Bartoli going to do if the match is 5-all and Azarenka is serving? Is she going to sit there and go, oh, well, I'll just see if I can sneak through this game? Or is she really going to drive some shots and go for some special shots? Because she knows if she gets that game, the match is going to be 6-5. It's going to be on her serve. And you can see how the odds are going to change significantly, because, of course, if Bartoli wins the set, they will drop to 163. But a break of serve is fairly important wherever it occurs. So again, if we look at 3-all in the first set, and Bartoli goes 30 love up, you can see that there's a fair amount of change. But at 5-all, you can see that there's more than at lower odds. So let's say it's 1-set-all then. What happens at that point if it's Azarenka is serving on Bartoli is trying to get a break? You can see here that the odds would go from 247, and if she broke, they'd go to 207. So the match levels itself out at 1-all, 4-3, and Bartoli goes on to serve the next game. You can see that if she wins, then that would crunch into 125. So this is something that you can use to play around with a lot, because it throws up all sorts of interesting scenarios. Let's wind it forward to 5-all and see what would happen. If Bartoli was serving at 6-5, having just broken in the last game, massive difference. So let's wind it back to 5-all she'd be at Azarenka would be at 174, Bartoli would be at 236, and if she breaks serve, look at the difference in price. 236 down to 113. So okay, maybe we laid Azarenka at 5-all, 174. What would happen in that situation if she goes on to win the game? So Azarenka goes on to win the game. We've laid her at 174. We move in 20 ticks. So we would lose 20 ticks in that situation. But say that Bartoli broke Azarenka, upside is enormous. So before a match started, this isn't a tool that you have to use just in play. Before the match starts, you can play around, have a look, and see where some really interesting points are likely to develop during the match. And that's one of the reasons that we designed Tennis Trader.